Ever find yourself wondering why some people seem to just, well, click in relationships and others always seem to be struggling?
Yeah, it's a common question, isn't it?
It really is. Today we're doing a deep dive into attachment theory. We're using our source text to unpack this really fascinating idea.
Hmm.
Think of it as trying to understand the hidden uh, scripts that shape our bonds,
Yeah.
starting way, way back when we were infants.
Exactly. And our mission here is just to give you the core ideas, the real essence of it, without getting tangled up in too much academic jargon.
Perfect. So, attachment theory itself, what is it at its absolute heart?
At its heart, it's really about those deep, enduring emotional connections we make, especially that very first powerful bond between a baby and their main caregiver.
Okay,
The theory explores how these early experiences sort of lay down patterns for how we connect with people later on.
got it. So there are different styles of attachment, right?
Yeah.
Let's maybe start with the one that's seen as the most, well, functional, secure attachment.
Yes, secure attachment. People with this style, they generally trust others. They tend to be comfortable with intimacy, but also okay with independence.
And where does that typically come from?
Usually it comes from having caregivers who were pretty consistently available and responsive to their needs as infants,
Hmm.
building that base of trust.
Right, that makes sense. Consistency builds trust. So what happens if that early caregiving is less reliable? That's where insecure styles pop up.
Precisely. If the caregiving is inconsistent or maybe neglectful or just not quite meeting the child's needs reliably, that's when insecure patterns can develop.
Okay, and there are different types of insecure attachment.
Uh-huh. One common one is anxious attachment, sometimes called preoccupied attachment.
Anxious? What does that look like? What are the signs?
Well, someone with an anxious attachment style often worries quite a bit about their partner being available, emotionally available. They might need a lot of reassurance.
Okay.
There's often an underlying fear of rejection or being abandoned.
I think a lot of people can probably relate to needing reassurance sometimes. What's the other main insecure style? Avoidant.
Yes, avoidant attachment. This one often involves a kind of discomfort with closeness, with intimacy.
So pushing people away almost.
Sometimes, or just keeping an emotional distance, they might really value their independence, maybe suppress their own needs to avoid relying on others.
So these aren't just like labels you stick on people. These styles actually impact how relationships work.
Oh, absolutely. These early patterns can significantly shape how we approach relationships our whole lives. They influence, how comfortable we are getting close, how we deal with arguments, our general satisfaction in relationships.
Wow. Okay, this is really insightful. Now, Mary Ainsworth, she's a huge name here. What was her key contribution?
Mary Ainsworth was absolutely pivotal. Her research, particularly the strange situation experiment, was groundbreaking for developing the theory.
The strange situation. What actually happened in that experiment?
It was a really clever setup. Basically, researchers observed infants in a room, usually with their mothers, through a series of short episodes involving separations and reunions.
Separations from the caregiver.
Yes, and sometimes interaction with a stranger. They watched closely how the infant reacted to the caregiver leaving, and perhaps more importantly, how they reacted when the caregiver returned.
So you could actually see these different attachment styles playing out in how the babies responded.
Exactly. It gave concrete, observable evidence linking caregiver behavior to these distinct attachment patterns in young children.
It really underscores the caregiver's role then. How exactly does their behavior shape the child's style? Is it just about being there?
It's more about how they're there. Caregivers who are sensitive, who notice the child's signals when they're upset, hungry, need comfort, and respond appropriately and consistently, they're much more likely to foster secure attachment.
And inconsistent or neglectful care.
That, unfortunately, is more likely to lead towards one of the insecure patterns, either anxious or avoidant.
And all of this experience, these interactions, they build something called the internal working model. What's that?
Think of it like a mental map or maybe a set of expectations. It's our internal representation of ourselves. Am I worthy of care?
Hmm.
Of others, can I rely on them? And of relationships in general.
Oh, right.
And it's built directly from those early attachment experiences. It guides how we approach future relationships.
So it's like the foundation laid in childhood really shapes the building of our adult relationships, especially romantic ones.
Precisely. The patterns learned early on often unconsciously influence who we're drawn to, how we manage intimacy, how we handle conflict, expectations about commitment. You often see echoes of those early dynamics.
Okay, pulling it all together then. Attachment theory gives us this really powerful lens for understanding the roots of how we connect with others. And it all starts with those very first relationships.
That's the core idea, yeah. It provides a framework for understanding why we might repeat certain patterns in our relationships.
This has been incredibly helpful, thank you. So, for everyone listening, maybe take a moment to think.
Hmm.
Consider your own early experiences, perhaps what you know of them. How might they have shaped your internal working model, your own approach to relationships now?
Hmm.
It's just scratching the surface, of course, is a huge area. But what aspect of your own relationship patterns makes you curious?
Hmm.
What makes you think, huh, I wonder why I do that? Something to ponder.